Hello, Tuesday, July 7th. The reality of coronavirus is it's here to stay. And today an announcement was made about the State Fair of Texas closing down, not having the State Fair of Texas this September and October. For those of you who are not from Dallas or from Texas, the State Fair of Texas is an enormous state fair. I've been to other state fairs, and they pale in comparison to the size of the one that we have here in Texas. It's a multi-week event with literally millions of people coming to visit Dallas. The economic impact on the city is enormous. It is estimated that up to like $450 million additional dollars come into the city just because of the fair. Some of the businesses that operate at the fair, they only operate once a year during the fair because they make so much money during it that the people that own those businesses survive the rest of the year off the profits from the fair. So this is a major economic blow to the city. But it's also a cultural blow because it is kitschy, it is over the top, and it does actually do some business because there is the cattle auctions and the animal auctions and stuff that happen there. So it still has its roots in what a state fair, the purpose of a state fair, but also it's like just an overall cultural experience that's in Dallas. And the last time the fair closed down was during World War II. So to see the state fair go away this year is a sad confirmation of the new reality that we live in, because it is just too many people go to it. There would be no way to be able to make it safe. For me personally, I have many memories associated with the state fair. It's something I do not miss. I go to it every year. To me, it's like the start of the fall and the holiday season, and the fall and the winter. Because you have the state fair, then you have Halloween, Thanksgiving, and then Christmas, and then New Year's. So to me, it's like it starts the whole cycle. So to not be able to go this year will be sad, because I have gone to the fair every year that I've been living in Dallas. When I moved here December 21st, 1979 from Mexico, the first year I went to the fair. Curiously enough, I end up performing at the fair. Back then, there was a Creative Arts building, which is located at a different location than where it is now. It was called the Women's Building, and they had a stage, and there was a very popular fashion show that was held there, where most of the stores, more higher end stores, would loan clothes, and we would do a fashion show and showcase those stores and the clothing. And there was musical numbers in between some of the changes. At the time, I was a dancer. I was still a teenager, and I was with an agency and at the time, and I was a teenage model. So I modeled clothes, but I also was dancing. And so I went to the casting and got cast in it because I could model and do the dancing. So it was like kill two birds with one stone with Mark Bryan Sonna. And Elizabeth Peabody was the person who was in charge of coordinating the whole fashion show. And this was something that was seen by thousands of people. We would have 2 shows during the weekdays and then 3 shows on the weekend. And it was some funny stories from it. So lots of memories. One of the very first year, because I was a dancer, and they were actually introducing, because at the time, if you think of 1980 and 81 and 82, workout videos were kind of the new thing. And so there was an interest in dance wear and exercise wear at the time, because all of a sudden it was becoming a fashion thing. And so with one of the musical numbers, I was to wear a white leotard. A unitard, I'm sorry, not leotard, but white unitard. So it was a one piece in it, and I had this whole number that was choreographed that I had to perform in. And so we went through rehearsals for it. I learned the choreography. I had a solo in it. And the day before the state fair opened, I noticed that Elizabeth Peabody was taking final notes on the show as to how it was to proceed, to give us notes, and the models and us, the dancers. And somebody was whispering to her ear, and she just came up to me afterwards and said, we're not going to be able to let you use that white leotard. And, keep in mind, I think I was 17 at the time, or 16 or 17 at the time. And it's like, what? I mean, I've been rehearsing in it. I've been dancing in this. What's the story? Why else in the white leotard? And she said, well, now that we've got the lighting up, we didn't quite realize it, but under the stage lights, the white leotard becomes transparent. You're naked on stage. Except for my dance belt. So basically my butt was hanging. I mean, I was basically, and it's kind of like, I never bothered to look down at myself. And I remember looking at my arms and going, oh my God, it has become see-through. I'm standing on this stage in front of all these people and I've been dancing. And I was like, I can't believe you didn't tell me that, Miss Elizabeth Peabody. Why did you tell me that before? And she was like, does it sound horrible? But I so thoroughly enjoyed seeing you like that. And keep in mind, Elizabeth Peabody was like in her 60s. She was a very charming Southern lady, but the way she said it, it was just cracked me up. And I was like, oh my God, I've been dancing here practically naked in front of everybody. Nobody said anything. So we changed it to a black leotard. What was interesting about working the fair that year is that we were about to hit the sesquicentennial, I think. The following years when we hit the sesquicentennial, because I ended up doing that show for several years because it was a big hit and it paid really well. Oh my God. At the time I got paid $50 a show. Back in the early 80s, that was a lot more money. And then so it was $100 a day. And then it, getting paid that plus on the weekends it was $150 because it was 3 shows. So for a college kid back then, it paid good money. So I was like, yeah, this was the job I really wanted. What was interesting is I was going to SMU. I was a freshman at SMU, so I guess I was 16 at the time. No, yes, I started at 16, turned 17, so I was 17 at the time. When I got cast in the show, it was a big moneymaker for me, and I was on scholarship at the school, but not full scholarship. So I still had to pay money to go to college. So I needed that money because I was working at an ice cream parlor. And even though I made tips there, because it's a very high-end ice cream parlor where we sat down and you had service, I needed the money. And, that paid really well at the time. So at SMU, I remember my geology teacher, my English professor, I forget what other class. All were like, "Oh my God, you get the state fair." They knew of the show. They're like, "Yes, you can miss school for these few weeks. Make sure you turn in your assignments. We'll give you the notes as to what you need to read up on, and make sure you do the tests and so on. Get that done. But we'll coordinate and work around it." The dance department would not excuse me to go dance in the show, and I was like, "This is a professional gig that everybody knows. It pays really well." And I'm training at this school so that I can eventually dance professionally. And this is a professional dance gig that is very well known. So I had to go to the dean of the art school to get permission to be able to miss my ballet classes and my modern class so that I could attend and do the show. And I basically spent the next several weeks, I'm going to make more money than I could all year, Then I got a gig while I was there, because the Munchie monkeys, this was a stuffed animal that became, one of those, the toy of the year kind of thing, was being launched. And there was a girl monkey and a boy monkey, and they didn't even look like monkeys. They were called Munchie monkeys, but they were these colorful, bizarre looking anthropomorphic figures that kind of looked a bit simian. But it's, anyhow, they were the rage of the toy industry. And so they needed somebody to fit into those costumes to just go out into the fair and just walk a bit just to be seen. Kind of like, you see when you go to Disneyland, you see Mickey Mouse or Minnie Mouse. It was the same thing with the Munchie monkeys. So I fit into the girl monkey, and this guy that I was doing the fashion show, he fit into the guy monkey, the boy monkey, and we developed this whole little dance routine together. And then that one I got paid per appearance. I think I was $75 an appearance. and I was to appear 3 times, and it didn't coincide with the dance show. So all of a sudden, I was like making all this money doing the appearances. And again, it was one of those 2 times during the weekdays and then 3 or 4 times on the weekend. And I was getting paid all this money. So I netted thousands of dollars in a matter of 5 weeks of performing at the state fair. But working at the fair, I also learned about little out of the way places that most people didn't know about it. And I discovered a booth that had fried corn on the cob. That was my absolute favorite. And that's the one thing I eat every year I go to the fair is fried corn on the cob. It is literally what it sounds like. They take the corn that's on the cob, that's on a stick. They coat it in butter. Yes, they coat it in butter, then coat a batter over it, and then deep fry it. So when you bite into it, there's this crunchy exterior, but then butter just oozes out everywhere. They take corn, and I don't know how many calories it's got to have, but it's got to be probably more than 2,000 calories, just this one corn on the cob on a stick, because of the amount of butter in it. But oh my God, is it delicious. So, but I made some friends there. I remember the guy that was the guy of the Munchishi Monkey. He was hot. Well, he was a model. He was gorgeous. He was a little bit older than me because we were doing the teen clothing. And I was still, as I said, 17. I think he was like 19 or 20. That boy was so handsome. Oh, I had such a crush on him. Such a crush on him. He was straight, but he was okay with gay people because I was open at the time. And so we actually became really good friends. And actually, he saved me quite a bit because one of the chairs in the backstage when I was putting makeup on collapsed and pinned my legs underneath me. And I couldn't get up because I literally was pinned by the chair the way the chair broke. It was a folding chair that collapsed, and he picked me up in his arms because he was really strong, and he had the killer body. And he just picked me up, and I was like, ouch, but it was interesting because I did injure myself during the show because this was right before one of the performances. I was still able to perform, but for literally years, my knees would pop whenever I would do a deep plie because I really pulled some tendons and hurt myself. The choreography for that year wasn't as difficult. Then the choreographer left to do work in Las Vegas and doing shows at Vegas. So they needed a new choreographer, and I was offered the position. Because, I don't know, they saw I had natural talent. I, by that point, had done a show with Elizabeth Peabody outside of the State Fair of Texas. I had done the Fantastics, in which I played the mime, and she wanted it to be a dancing mime, and she let me choreograph that. So she saw my abilities of choreography for the show and for the other actors. She was impressed. I ended up choreographing the show, which paid me an even additional, quite a bit of money. So I ended up choreographing that show. And then life happened. Elizabeth Peabody, who was older, as I said, she was in her late 60s or maybe in her 70s at the time, was ill and passed away. And the show wasn't done that year. And then it just never came back. But she was instrumental in where the Creative Arts Building is currently at the Fair Park. She was pretty much, those buildings weren't really being used for the State Fair at the time. But she was instrumental in creating the stage that is currently there. Of course, that stage is now so old and needs to be updated. But at the time, it was like brand spanking new stage inside this building. And the remodeling of that building, where the Creative Arts Building is currently. She moved it from the Women's Building over to the Creative Arts Building. And we had a really great stage in which much higher ceilings, and we utilized that space. It had every bell and whistle at the time as a theater. Now it's a kind of a dated theater because it's been almost 40 years now. But those are my memories of the State Fair of Texas. And unfortunately, COVID-19 is preventing us from having the fair. But that is a place I've gone to every year that I lived in Texas. When I moved to Los Angeles for several years, I missed the State Fair because it became part of my blood. And as soon as I came back to Texas, I have not missed a single state fair since then. My partner at the time, Larry, he was a big fan of the state fair too. So the one thing we had in common was our love of the state fair, and it was something we missed. And I know when he moved, when we were together for quite a few years, 17 years total, when we separated and he moved to Temple, Texas, That's a story for another time. Our breakup, but I call him not my ex because ex sounds so final. I call him a previous relationship because we're still best of friends. But that's the one thing he says he misses because he's not been able to come up to the State Fair of Texas due to his work and when it lands in the year. So, but yeah, the State Fair, I have many, many, many memories with the State Fair, and I go by myself. Um, Pretty much almost every year. Sometimes I've gone with friends. I always invite a couple people, but it doesn't matter. I sometimes, will go on the fly because I'm usually busy with my theater company in October in rehearsals. So I try to find a day because when I go to the fair, I don't go for an hour or two. I'm there for hours because I see every exhibit. I walk every hall. I visit every museum because there's multiple museums also in the fairgrounds. So I make an entire day of it. And my requirements are I have to have the fried corn. I don't like Fletcher's corny dogs, but it's such a de rigueur thing to eat at the fair. I eat one corny dog here, and it's the Fletcher's corny dogs. And there's a stand that does, the Mexican waters, fruit waters. They do a watermelon water that is just divine. And then I usually try to eat, because every year there's a fried food that wins for best entry for fried food. And I try to eat that. So my things to eat, the fried corn, a corny dog, whatever the fried food is, and my watermelon water. So I'll miss that this year. But those are my memories of the State Fair. Sad to know that it's not going to happen this year, but I completely understand because it is, thousands. Some days they have, the fairgrounds are huge, but there's some days that have like 200,000 people showing up at the fair. That's a lot of people. So there's no way to keep everybody safe with that many people coming to an area that is pretty much enclosed. So that's my news on COVID-19 for today and the effects in my daily life. So I hope you like this video, my memories of the State Fair. Comment down below any special memories or things that you do, like you have to do every time you go to the fair. As I say, mine are eating those 4 items. It's a must for me. So, and then I always like to see the exhibit at the Hall of State. They usually have an exhibit. Sometimes it's a historical exhibit. Sometimes it's a pop culture exhibit. And that's my other requirement, that I must go to the Hall of State and see whatever exhibit they have there. Because they have had some really magnificent exhibits, and they're free. The other thing, I have to go into the aquarium. There's this old aquarium that was built in 1936, I think. It's dark, it's creepy, it's small, and they have piranhas. And they actually used to have a snapping turtle that finally passed away. I remember that turtle from the first time I ever went to that aquarium was when I was a kid. We were driving up to Chicago to visit my grandmother that lived in Chicago from Mexico. For whatever reason, we went to the Dallas Aquarium because we were coming through Dallas. And I remember seeing that snapping turtle, and I've seen that turtle all my adult life, but he passed away 3 years ago of old age. So they have a new one. But that's the other thing. I have to do the aquarium every time. As I say, it's dark, it's creepy. It's this cool old building. Love that space. They call it the Children's Aquarium now because they've tried to make it more kid-friendly, but it's still dark and creepy in there and fabulous because of it. All right. Like, subscribe, ring the notification bell if you want to be notified about my videos. And then please subscribe. I'd like to get more subscribers. If you've seen more than 2 of my videos, you deserve to subscribe to it. And then if you see this tonight, have a good evening. If you see it tomorrow, have a good morning or good afternoon. Be safe and wear your masks.